everyone, it's Alicia and welcome back into my kitchen. And if this is your first time here, hello and welcome into my wonderfully witchy kitchen. Well, today is December 12th at the time of my recording this video, which obviously that means tomorrow is December 13th, and that means that tomorrow is Saint Lucia Day. And Lucia of Syracuse was a Christian martyr who lived and died at the turn of the 4th century, and she was a badass bitch. If you don't know her story, go look her up. She was just an amazing figure, and I always believe that if someone really is a saint or a mystic, if they have that energy and wisdom, that while they may grow up in a specific faith or tradition, that their wisdom and what they have to share transcends all faiths, and people of all spiritual leanings can connect with them, which is why I, as a Wiccan and a pagan, I still connect with Saint Lucia, because Saint Lucia is patroness of the blind. She represents light and inner wisdom and the fact that you don't need physical sight to be a wise soul and to live a happy, fulfilling life, even though she died shortly after losing her sight. But to summarize briefly, Lucia was a young woman who decided to dedicate herself to her faith and to remain an unmarried servant of God. And she had been betrothed to a pagan gentleman from her village or from a nearby village, and there's no sense of she had a problem with him being pagan. She was like, hey honey, you do you, but I just don't feel called to that life. I want to go off and do my own thing. She was fine with him doing his own thing, but he was angry and hurt at her leaving him, so he betrayed her as a Christian to the local authorities, and they came and basically tried to force her to make sacrifices to gods that she didn't follow or identify with. And she was like, hey man, you can make me physically do these things, but the God I follow, he knows that my heart isn't in it. So even if you make me mimic the actions of the rituals you want me to go through, my God will know that my heart's not in it, and so it doesn't count, basically. So then the authorities were like, okay, we're gonna take out your eyes because then you won't be able to see and prophesize against us. So they gouged out her eyes, which, lovely. And she was like, yeah, that didn't do shit, guys. I can still see, I still have that inner wisdom, so joke's on you. So then they stabbed her in the throat so she wouldn't be able to talk. But of course she could still go right on with her predictions and channeling the messages that she had to say. So they eventually killed her, and that was the only way they could get her to stop being a badass, basically. And so nowadays, Saint Lucia is regarded as the patroness of the blind. She's often depicted with a crown of candles on her head, and she's revered a lot in Scandinavia, which I've always wondered about that, how a saint who was from Italy ended up becoming such a big part of Scandinavian tradition. My own personal theory is that because Lucia gave up her eyes for inner wisdom, that resonated with the peoples of Scandinavia, because Odin also gave up one of his eyes for inner wisdom. But I love Saint Lucia. I love working with her energy. It can be very calm and inviting and just peaceful, like the sight of a candle in a window when you're outside on a cold winter day. But it also has that ferocity of, hey, take my eyes, stab me in the throat, whatever, I'm still gonna be able to convey the inner wisdom I have no matter what you try and do to me. And I have always resonated with that physical ability has nothing to do with inner wisdom, but I really need that energy coming up, because on the 16th I'm going to finally be having the surgery to remove the cataract on my one good eye. It was supposed to be done on the 4th, last Friday, but the equipment that they needed for the surgery. They didn't get it in time, and so we had to reschedule, which that was a huge bummer because I literally was in the hospital room with the gown on with all the little sticky things that they put on your chest for like heart monitoring and stuff. And they were like, oh, sorry, we don't have the one thing that we need. You have to come back in a couple weeks. But the surgery that I've been putting off for an entire year because we wanted to wait until my sight got to a point where I felt, okay, I'm ready for it, because this is going to be a very risky surgery since this is the only eye I have sight in, and hopefully everything will go well and my eyesight will be restored to what it was before. But if not, you know, that's okay. It won't be the end of the world. It'll just be a new adjustment for me. But yeah, hopefully, of course, all will go well. But with that in mind, yeah, St. Lucia, girl, I really need your energy right now. And for anyone watching this, I could use all the prayers and good vibes I could get, no matter what tradition you come from. And so, with all this in mind, today's recipe is going to be my take on St. Lucia buns, or as they are known in Swedish, Lussebullar. I know I completely butchered that pronunciation because, Swedish, it's a beautiful language, but in my efforts to learn it when I was over in Sweden during the summer of 2013, I did not do very well. Even with the words that didn't have the extra letters that Swedish has, the letters that have the adorable little dots over them, I don't know what you call them, but they're adorable. But even with words that didn't feature them, I was not very good at pronouncing Swedish. So apologies to all my Swedish ancestors and any Swedish people watching this. But anyway, today we're making St. Lucia buns, which are a traditional treat made for St. Lucia Day in all Scandinavian countries, not just Sweden. And they are made with saffron, which is the world's most expensive spice. It's literally worth more than gold in its weight. And that's why my recipe is what I call the poor man's take on St. Lucia buns, because I use turmeric as a substitute for the saffron. And I've always done that ever since I started making St. Lucia buns, which have been for a few years now. Even though without the saffron, some might consider them not real St. Lucia buns, it's what I've always been able to afford, making it with the turmeric, and I wanted to share it with you, especially this year since we're all on lockdown and in quarantine, and I know that some might not be able to afford saffron or don't have access to it. So with that, here is the poor man's take on St. Lucia buns. In this bowl I have 1/3 cup of milk, and on this plate I have half a stick of butter. And the first step is I'm going to cut the butter into little pieces and add it in the milk and microwave it for about 30 seconds, give or take a few, until the milk is warm and the butter has melted. And yes, you can also do this on the stovetop, but in the microwave it's like twice as fast and it gets you the same results. So with that, I'm going to get this in the microwave. And just as a note, you want to heat this until it's warm to the touch, but isn't too hot, because if it's too hot, you're going to end up killing the yeast that we're going to add in a minute. So first things first, warm up the butter and milk. And here is the milk and butter mixture after 30 seconds. The butter, it's still in pieces, so I'm going to do it for maybe another 15-20 seconds. And it's okay if when it first comes out it's a little bit hot, because the second step is combining some warm water with the yeast and letting it sit for a few minutes before we add the milk and butter mixture. So yeah, but still don't let it be too hot when it comes out of the microwave. But if it's a little over temperature, it should be fine. There we go, this is more like it. The butter has fully melted into the milk, so now it's a homogeneous mixture, and it is quite warm to the touch, but if I put my finger in it, it's warm but not scalding hot where I feel like, I can't touch that, it hurts too much. So yeah, that's the old-fashioned way to tell if the mixture is heated enough. If it's warm to the touch and quite warm, almost like hot bath water, but not so hot that it's uncomfortable to test it with your finger. So I'm gonna let this set aside because it's a little bit warmer. I'd be nervous to just dump this in now, but I'm gonna set this aside while I get the yeast and water together. And here in the bowl of my stand mixer, I have 1/4 of a cup of lukewarm water. And again, also you can make this by hand, but if you have a stand mixer with a dough hook attachment, makes it way easier. So here I have the warm water, and here I have a package of active dry yeast, and I know there's been a yeast shortage this year. I wasn't able to find more packets like this until the fall of this year, and this was my last packet from, I've had this for a while, but I wanted to save this because I said to myself, if this is the only yeast I have this year, I'm saving this for Lucia Buns. But thankfully I was able to get more, but since I have saved this packet with the intention of making Lucia Buns, I'm using this packet because it's all about intention, and all this year I have known this was in my cupboard and have saved it for this specific purpose. So even though I have more yeast, this packet is being used for the Lucia Buns. So now what I'm going to do is add the active dry yeast to the warm water and let it bloom for 5 minutes. So here, as you can see, I've added the milk and butter mixture to the yeast and warm water, and now I'm going to add, in this cup I have 1/4 cup and 1/2 teaspoon of salt and 1 egg, and here I have my turmeric. I'm going to add 1/4 teaspoon of that, which you can do as well, or if you're one of the lucky bastards that has saffron, same measurement of that, 1/4 teaspoon, and that will make the base for the yeast to nibble on, because yeast, it's a living organism, so you have to give it a snack. So that's what all these ingredients are for. And the saffron gives the Lucia Buns its distinctive taste. But like I said, I have always used turmeric because I can't afford saffron. So yeah, it makes it just as delicious. Although I don't know, because I've never had an actual saffron laced St. Lucia bun. But these ones with the turmeric turn out just as yummy. And here are the wet ingredients all mixed in. As you can see, it's turned a beautiful yellow color. That's one of the signatures of saffron, is it makes things yellow. So the turmeric mimics that color. I'm not sure about the flavor, like I mentioned before, but it at least gives a similar pretty yellow color. So there we go. And over here in this bowl I have 2 3/4 cups of flour, all-purpose flour, and I'm going to start by adding 1 1/2 cups to the wet mixture and stir until it's smooth, and then gradually add enough of the remaining flour until we get a dough that pulls away from the sides of the bowl and comes together in a big mass of dough. And this is what my dough looks like after I added another cup of flour. And I would suggest going by 1/4 cup intervals, or just adding a little of the extra flour at a time until your dough seems like this. It's pulling away from the sides of the bowl and coming together in one big yummy lump of dough. And now that it's coming together, you'll want to knead it for anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes. If you're kneading by hand, I would say do the full 10. But for me, with using a stand mixer, mine takes about 8 minutes, and you'll want to knead until the dough comes together, and if you lift up the dough hook, the dough should just come cleanly right off. But I will show that once this has gone for about 8 minutes. And here is the dough after 8 minutes of kneading. As you can see, he's on the hook, but if I try and slide it off with one hand without the thing crashing down. It's coming very easily off the hook and sliding off in just one mass. It's not really sticking to the dough hook. And that's what you want, is for it to cleanly come off the thing, which I'm gonna turn the camera off and slide it off. I need 2 hands for this. Okay, now here's the dough off the hook, and as you can see, it's in all one nice piece, and the dough hook itself is clean, so that's when you know you've kneaded enough if you're doing it in a machine like this, if these are the signs to look for. But another, if you're doing it by hand, is if you push the dough, it should spring back. So if you press it down with a finger, the indent should spring back, and it's doing that, so it's ready for its first proofing or first rising. And to do that, I'm putting it in this, and I don't know if I've shown you guys this, but this is the yellow bowl. And you're like, of course, Alicia, it's a giant plastic yellow Tupperware bowl. We can see that, but no, this is the yellow bowl. This has a very special spot in my heart. This was my grandmother's bowl, and we used it to cook lots of things, but what I remember most about it is we would make our Thanksgiving stuffing in this big bowl. Grandma would put the dried out bread in it, and my sister and I would break it up into pieces to make stuffing. So this has a lot of fond memories for me, especially around the holidays. And when my grandparents, when they were moving a couple years ago, Grandma called me and she said, Alicia, I'm clearing out, we're going through our house. Is there anything from our house that you want? Because we're obviously not going to take everything with us. We're moving to a smaller place. And I said, I want the yellow bowl without missing a beat. So this has served well in my kitchen and will for many years, and it's the perfect bowl for proofing bread dough in. So I'm gonna put the Lucia Bun dough in the yellow bowl, and also in the bowl, I don't know if you can see this, but I put about a tablespoon of vegetable oil in the bowl. You'll want either vegetable oil or sunflower oil or just a neutral flavored oil in the bowl, and you turn the dough in it so it coats it, so it gets coated in the oil, because that keeps it from drying out during proofing. And then you cover it with a clean kitchen towel or foil, or a clean shower cap if you have it, and if it'll fit over the bowl, and just let it proof out on the counter at room temperature for 45 minutes or until it's doubled in size. And here, after 45 minutes, is my dough. It has doubled in size, and so now comes the fun part. Now we have to shape the dough into the traditional St. Lucia bun shapes. And again, I'm not an expert. I did not grow up with these buns. I've only made them a couple years, but I will do my best. And over here, I have my cutting board with flour all ready to go. And that's another thing I should have mentioned. Over here, I have the bowl that had the remaining flour that I was going to put in the dough. So yeah, don't throw away any leftover flour you might have after you measure it out, because you'll use it obviously for the rolling and shaping. Alrighty, and this is how you roll the buns. So what you do is you break off a little piece of dough from the big lump of the whole thing of dough, and you roll it into a snake about, I think the measurement was 8 inches, but honestly I just kind of eyeball it. So roll it into just as long as it makes a nice slender snake, and then you roll the snake into a little spiral so it curls in on itself. It's supposed to, so they say, look like a sleeping cat, or a cat that's curled up by the fireplace or wherever cats like to sleep. So that's why sometimes the buns are also called Lussekatter, which means, I guess, Lucy kittens, cats, I don't know. But anyway, so yeah, you curl the little snake into a spiral, and for those of you who want to be magical about it, it spirals clockwise, and as you can see, the little tail of the bun, it it seems to be, well, it's going in that direction, but yeah, basically when you roll up the spiral, roll the dough clockwise. Don't roll it counterclockwise, because they say that could bring bad luck. Stirring or rolling something widdershins or counterclockwise is said to be bad luck. So yeah, if you want to just infuse good magical vibes, curl the dough clockwise. And my hand is probably moving in the wrong direction because anyway, just curl the dough to make these sweet little spirals, and then put them on a baking sheet, a greased baking sheet. Once I get all the buns rolled up, then we'll let them do their second proofing. And here is the dough all rolled out and shaped. I used 2 cookie sheets to give the buns plenty of room to rise, and yeah, here they are. If you see a curled up kitty cat in the shape, cool. For me, I see more of a, like the inward spiral of a rose or even like a seashell, but regardless of what you see, here they are in their cute little spirals and they look adorable. And now what we're gonna do is cover these and let them do their last proofing for 30 minutes, and then they will be ready to get set for the oven. And here are the buns after their final rising, and oh my gods, they look so cute. I can see the curled up kitty cat now that they're a little bit bigger. But the final step to make the St. Lucia buns is, up here I have, in this little cup, I have an egg wash, which is just a beaten egg with a tablespoon of water. And in this jar, I've got some raisins. So what you're gonna do now is brush the buns with the egg wash, and you can use a pastry brush if you have one, but for me, I just use my clean hands and just brush the buns that way. And then you decorate it with the raisins. And here are the buns with the egg wash and with the little raisins on them. And traditionally, at least as far as I could tell from researching, you're supposed to do 2 raisins for each bun at the top of the spiral so they look like the eyes of the little kitty cats. And so that's what I did. And now these are ready to go into a 350-degree oven for 15 to 20 minutes, or until the buns are golden brown. So I have another sheet of buns to glaze and raisins, so I will get that going while these are baking, and I will show you the beautiful buns once they're out. And here are the finished St. Lucia buns. No, I didn't eat some. This is the second tray because the other tray is empty over here, and I put those buns on a cooling rack. But as you can see, here's what they look like when they're done. They are a lovely golden brown. They smell amazing, and they have all the little raisins on them. Although this little guy, some of them lost some eyes, but you know, St. Lucia did too, so seems fitting. But anyway, yeah, these are the poor man's St. Lucia buns made with turmeric instead of saffron, and they are delicious. At least I find them delicious, and hopefully someday I'll be able to have a real saffron bun, St. Lucia bun. But until then, these will do for now, and they make my home lovely and holiday-ish. And over here, I'll show you over here. Here are the ones on the cooling rack, and they look wonderful too. So if you make these, please let me know. And how do you celebrate St. Lucia Day? I want to hear from you, especially if you're here in the States as well, or if you're in a country outside of Scandinavia, because that's really the only place where I've heard that St. Lucia Day is a really big thing with parades and singing and all that good stuff. I hope to someday see that for myself when I go back to Sweden, hopefully at Yuletide, Christmas time, when it's all wintry and dark, and there's the beautiful parade with the girl as St. Lucia dressed in white with the wonderful candle crown on her head. But for now, eating these buns will help bring a little piece of that into my home. For all of you who celebrate St. Lucia Day, I hope you have a happy one, And if you make these buns, please let me know. We officially first have them on December 13th, St. Lucia Day, but I've also heard that they are made for the winter Christmas season in general in Scandinavia, so we've got lots of weeks to make these and enjoy them. So if you make them, and if you make this poor man's version or quarantine version, please let me know. And I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful St. Lucia Day. And the next time I see you, I will have had my surgery, so I'll let you know how that went. Thank you for watching. Blessed be, and I will see you hopefully with a cataract-free eyeball. Love you guys. Bye.